Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be the team selection for Game Week 12. I only have one free transfer, but I'm actually open to taking a -4 or possibly even a -8 hit, as I'll discuss throughout this podcast. And in my transfer plans video last week, I discussed some possible transfers I could make, and I'd encourage you to check that out for the full Game Week 11 review as well. I'm only going to do a brief one in this podcast, of course, and in future videos, you'll see the ultimate coverage for FPL. The deadline and reaction streams are coming your way over the weekend, alongside Use Your Fantasy videos for Matchday 5, the best limitless and wildcard teams, alongside the team selection and respective deadline stream. And for FPL, there's also the transfer tips and best wildcard team videos that I'd also encourage you to watch. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, I promise to get this to about 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. And if you want to support the channel even further, there's the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Every transfer I made in Game Week 11 worked perfectly. I bought Nuri and Cunha, who delivered healthy returns against Southampton, and I also bought Mohamed Salah, who I captained with that 14-pointer against Aston Villa. Cunha did the business against Southampton, clean sheets from Mykolenko and Nuri, and I had a few dilemmas in my team selection in terms of starting Rico Lewis or Mykolenko, and I did go for the Evertonian because of their recent record at the Olympic Stadium, so I'm very happy with some of my decisions in the previous week. But the double up in the Arsenal defence still hasn't worked since Game Week 4, so buying both Raya and Gabriel on the Game Week 6 wildcard hasn't turned out well whatsoever, but I'm expecting a turnaround from Game Week 12 and beyond with Arsenal's fixture swing, and with this little international break, it might actually provide a boost for the Gunners. It came at a very good time for them personally. Cole Palmer, Foden, very disappointing, and they're both yellow flagged right now. Mbeumo got an assist, but slightly underwhelming considering how many goals Brentford scored, and it was Wissa who stole the show. Solanke blanked against Ipswich Town, and he was a captaincy consideration for me, but thankfully I did start him against Aston Villa, where he delivered 16 points in the previous game week, and Chris Wood did blank, but you can forgive him because he's been an excellent FPL asset this season. He scored a hat-trick over the international break, but it is Arsenal and Man City away over the next 3 game weeks. That's 69 points for Game Week 11, so a decent overall score now, and my rank has gone up to roughly 600,000 in the world, and I haven't been doing too great this season. I had a great start in the first 3 game weeks. I started making transfers in Game Week 4, and it started going downhill from the first international break onwards. I also played the wildcard in Game Week 6, and I have risen in rank, but slowly and surely. It hasn't been an immediate impact, and the wildcard is always a long-term tour, and hopefully I'm heading in the right direction. I want to build upon the momentum I've been really building towards the last couple of weeks, but let's wait and see. It all comes down to this. We're getting into the very busy part of the season during the Christmas period, and we've got a lot of Champions League and Premier League action coming your way, and it will all be covered on this channel with FPL and Use Your Fantasy content. I am open to the possibility of selling Arsenal defenders or David Raya in goal, but with this defensive double up, I think it's worth holding on to them for a little while longer, and if they don't keep clean sheets by Game Week 14-15, then I think they're definitely in sell territory. But keeping either Raya or Gabriel in the long term is still advisable, but you might want to trim down your Arsenal coverage, particularly in the defensive line, if they don't show dramatic improvement from the first 11 game weeks of the season. It's Nottingham Forest at home next. That's not going to be easy, but Arsenal got 2 victories against them last season, both narrow 2-1 victories, and I think they could do the same here and go on a run. But we've been saying this for week after week. It's 4 games without a win for the Gunners in the Premier League. They've done fairly well in the Champions League despite their recent defeat to Inter Milan. Only 1 goal conceded in that competition, but in the Premier League it simply hasn't been good enough, especially from a defensive perspective. Despite the healthy returns from my defenders in Game Week 11, I'm not confident about their prospects in the upcoming game weeks, and that includes Mykolenko facing Brentford at home. That could be an immediate clash with Brian Mbeumo, and I would favour Brentford to score more so than Everton keeping a clean sheet. In the last couple of game weeks, I think Mykolenko has been decent for me, keeping clean sheets against Ipswich Town and also West Ham away, but in home matches they've been very disappointing. With Branthwaite returning, I think that gives them a massive boost, but Mykolenko has been a very inconsistent asset so far this season, and he did miss a clean sheet early in the campaign due to injury, and that's one of the major problems with the Ukrainian left back. He picks up so many problems either through illness or injury. Hopefully he can stay fit, but in a couple of game weeks' time, we're going to see a massive fixture swing against Everton from game week 15 onwards when they face the likes of Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea and Arsenal, all back-to-back. The likes of Mykolenko are benchable, and to be quite honest with you, they're also in massive sell territory from that point onwards. So I don't see myself keeping Mykolenko for that much longer. He might be worth starting in one of the next few game weeks, but I'm not that confident about clean sheets from Everton over the next month or so. My second defender is one of my recent purchases in Reine Nuri. He has the attacking potential, so he can salvage something in any given game. He showed it against Brighton away very recently, but I just don't see Wolves keeping a clean sheet against Fulham in this fixture. It's possible, but just very unlikely, so you're really relying on a goal or an assist from Nuri, and I'm very tempted to make a defender transfer, which could mean a -4 or a -8 hit, and Konate is firmly on radar, as Liverpool boast the best defensive record with only 6 goals conceded and the best underlying stats defensively, and it's Southampton away next, but then it's Man City and Newcastle over the next 3, so there are some pros and cons about buying Konate and the other defenders that are on radar. Check out my best wildcard team videos to see all the defenders and players I'd recommend using that chip, not just for Game Week 12, but also in the long term. My third and final defender is Gabriel, by far the most confident, I think, in terms of Arsenal keeping a clean sheet compared to Wolves or Everton. So it's kind of a bit of a bleak situation when I'm relying on Arsenal keeping a clean sheet with such a poor defensive line on paper. My alternative picks include Rico Lewis at home to Tottenham and Van den Berg, who might be dropped when some of Brentford's fullbacks return from injury, like Rico Henry. So that's going to be a very, very poor situation. I think the defense still needs even more improvement despite buying Nuri only last week. I'm still quite bullish on Arsenal defenders like Gabriel, who is still the best way of covering them defensively, in my opinion. You might want to look at Jurriën Timber with Ben White set to miss 12 weeks of action. I think he could be fairly nailed on in the Arsenal defensive line, but I'm still a bit skeptical since he's just returning from that long ACL injury he had last season, and he has been in and out of the side even in this campaign with a few niggles here and there. But I'm still very happy with Raya and Gabriel. I think they will come good eventually, but with Reine Nuri and Mykolenko, it's not looking so good in Game Week 12. The best Game Week 12 captain on paper is undoubtedly Mohamed Salah. He had a full rest during the international break, and he's been in incredible form in the Premier League, the only player to have over 100 FPL points so far this season. There are other captaincy options this week that I'll mention very soon, and I've covered throughout all of my podcasts going into Game Week 12, but I think Salah does rise above all of them, and even against City and Newcastle coming up, I still think Salah is a good captaincy option in both game weeks. His consistency is unrivaled and his high ceiling is up there with the likes of Cole Palmer, which makes him a very desirable captain. And right now, the Salah versus Haaland debate, there's no question about it. Salah's cheaper, getting more points, and he has the advantages as a midfielder for getting a clean sheet or scoring a goal. My second midfielder is a budget option in Semenyo, who is yellow flagged, and trust me, you're going to see a lot of yellow flags coming up, but I still think Semenyo will be available. The same goes for my other players in the starting 11 who are currently cautioned at 75% chance of playing. It's Brighton at home next, which isn't the easiest of games, but I think Semenyo will have opportunities here, and he has a lot of shot volume, which is always very promising, especially for a player at this price tag. It's no given, so it's something that I really like about him. He got 10 points a couple of weeks ago on my bench against Manchester City, and luckily enough, I benched him in Game Week 11 and he did blank, but he was very close to scoring against Brentford. And I think Semenyo is still the best Bournemouth asset, although in recent weeks, you'd probably give the title to Evanilson, who's been very consistent in the last 5 matches. The next option, though, is Cole Palmer, who has been spotted in training in the last couple of days. I'm very confident he's going to play. In fact, I'd be very surprised if he didn't feature or started against Leicester City. He's another great choice for the armband this week, and on paper, he's the only one that really rivals Mohamed Salah, and he could outscore the Egyptian. I think both of them are in contention for the armband. There are some nice differentials, though, in the midfield and forward line, like Isak and Bruno Fernandes, who could definitely enter the conversation, but Palmer has the consistency, high ceiling, and no players outscored him since his first start in the Premier League back in Game Week 7 for Chelsea last season. But let's complete this midfield with 2 other options, including Brian Mbeumo, who is also yellow flagged. I'm still very confident he's going to feature against Everton away, but I think it's Game Week 13 where he could enter the captaincy conversation against Leicester City at home. They've got a lot of injury problems, like Fatal out for the rest of the season, and a lot of different issues there, and I think Brentford could really take advantage. They've scored the most goals in home matches so far this season, so I'm not that confident about Everton away necessarily, but Mbeumo is still desirable and worth holding on to for the next 2 game weeks. But from game week 14 onwards, we'll probably see a push towards selling Mbeumo to somebody like Bowen, or changing the structure of our midfields to maybe facilitate Bruno Fernandes, Saka, Palmer and Mohamed Salah. Speaking of which, it's between Fernandes and Saka for this final spot, and Saka could be my final transfer in for this position, replacing Phil Foden, who's massively underperformed this season. I made this switch a couple of weeks ago when Saka faced Liverpool. He was a massive doubt to play that game. He ended up scoring, and making this transfer has cost me in the end, especially if I end up taking a -4 hit this week to make amends for this situation, buying Saka back. And that's why I'm still considering Bruno Fernandes as a short-term punt and really backing Ruben Amorim to have an immediate impact at Manchester United. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Would you go for Fernandes or Saka as the best Phil Foden replacement? I do think Saka is better in the long term, and his consistency is right up there with Salah and Palmer, but he doesn't have the high ceiling on a consistent basis as the other two, and that's why for the captaincy, I lean towards Salah and Palmer in most game weeks. Another potential transfer would be in the forward line. Isak is one of my favourite options right now. He has scored in 3 consecutive games. Newcastle are winning matches back-to-back, and they're in a strong position right now. Facing West Ham at home, they could score 2 or 3 goals here, and Isak could get the bulk of the points with a goal and an assist, or potentially his first brace of the season. It is long overdue. I had him back in game week 1. He was actually fairly decent for me. I pretty much sold him at the right time, and when he's in the mood, I don't see many strikers being better in the Premier League. Probably only Erling Haaland and arguably Ollie Watkins. I think Isak is by far the best Newcastle asset and one of the best forwards you can buy from game week 12 onwards. And to complete this team, I'm going for another Wolves asset in Cunha. I'm a bit more favourable towards him compared to Aït-Nouri, as I think Wolves could still score against Fulham, and Cunha is very likely to be involved for a goal or an assist, and if he can get that, he can still get 2 or 3 bonus points in the process, even if Wolves lose comprehensively. So overall, I'm happy with this team. The biggest weakness will be the defensive line. There are a lot of yellow flags in the midfield, but I expect all of them to play, and it could be Bruno Fernandes coming into my FPL team instead of Bukayo Saka. The transfers are the most important aspect, especially this week, but the bench and the captaincy are still debates and topics worth covering. I've got Valdimarsson, Chris Wood, Lewis and Van den Berg on the bench. The only one I think that could really backfire is Chris Wood, but because I've got Raya and Gabriel already in my starting 11, I would like to avoid yet another clash, as I've got Mykolenko versus Mbeumo at this moment in time, and I would favour Arsenal for the clean sheet slightly more than Chris Wood scoring, but based on recent form, I think most people would think the other way, and I completely understand that. Chris Wood has been phenomenal this season, but I'm slightly more conflicted about the captaincy this week, especially if I buy Isak and Bruno Fernandes. Both of them are great differential captaincy options, but I think the 2 main choices will be Palmer and Salah for the armband, and I'm currently going for Mohamed Salah, facing Southampton away with a full rest over the international break, no yellow flags, and Liverpool flying at the top of the Premier League and Champions League tables, whilst Chelsea can be fairly inconsistent, but I do back them to get quite a few goals against Enzo Maresca's former club in Leicester City. If you've got any other thoughts or questions, let me know down in the comment section below. I think Palmer is very close to Salah in the captaincy order this week. Those 2 are by far and away the best options on paper. I think Erling Haaland could also sneak into the equation, facing a Tottenham side that could be without many key players as well, and Haaland also scored a lot of goals over the international break. Another hat-trick for him, and he has been flying on the international stage, but he hasn't been able to quite replicate that in the Premier League in recent weeks. But Tottenham at home is a good fixture profile-wise for Manchester City and Erling Haaland. Let me now show you my transfer plans using FPL.team, and that could go from a -8 hit to just rolling and being quite conservative with my moves. The vast majority of you will be more interested in the more aggressive approach with the -8 hit, and that would include buying Konate for Rico Lewis, whilst also buying Bruno Fernandes and Isak as part of that -8 hit. It would be the same players making way in the midfield and forward line, so Foden and Solanke would make way, and in this case, like I mentioned earlier, Lewis would be the sacrifice for Konate. I wouldn't be able to afford Konate if I sold Van den Berg instead, for example, but I still have enough money in the bank with 0.6 million to upgrade Van den Berg to another budget defender, perhaps someone like Joachim Andersen or maybe Mazraoui to cover Man United defensively, but it doesn't make much sense to do that beyond the next 2 game weeks as the Red Devils have some tough games beyond game week 13. But I think the 11 looks really strong on paper with Raya in goal, Gabriel, Konate and Aït-Nouri, although that could easily be Mykolenko instead. A midfield 5 of Mbeumo, Bruno Fernandes, Salah, Palmer and Semenyo, with Isak and Cunha up front. The bench includes Valdimarsson, Chris Wood, Mykolenko and Van den Berg. I think some of you might argue you could just not take the -4 hit and don't go for Isak just yet and start Chris Wood against Arsenal. It's not the worst option in the world and he could get a goal and bonus points in the process. I certainly don't think that's impossible, and in fact, I think his recent form is still incredible. The expected points here is 57.6 with a -8 hit. That isn't actually too high according to FPL.team, and the alternative is to roll, and this is how my team would look like in Game Week 12 with Raya, Gabriel, Aït-Nouri and Mykolenko, the same midfield 5 as discussed earlier, but with Phil Foden instead of Saka or Bruno Fernandes, Solanke and Cunha up front, but I could start Chris Wood over Solanke. That would be a 50-50 call, and the same options in Valdimarsson, Lewis and Van den Berg on the bench. The expected points is 53.3 according to FPL.team right now, and that would be slightly higher than what I just showed you with the -8 hit factored in buying Konate, Fernandes and Isak. My current plan is to take a -4 hit and get one of Fernandes or Saka to replace Foden and then buy Isak for Dominic Solanke, but other forwards are definitely on radar like Nicholas Jackson, Danny Welbeck and Joao Pedro, but my preference is to have one mid-price to premium forward to give me more flexibility with my team structure. Let's now check out Drafthound. There is a link in the description below, and let's see what they suggest for my transfers. It seems like the Drafthound algorithm is in agreement with my current transfer plans. Their top recommendation is selling Foden to Bruno Fernandes, which is what I discussed in my transfer plans video. Then Solanke to Isak is their second suggestion, and number 3 would be a -4 hit, buying Fernandes and Isak, the exact moves I discussed in that aforementioned transfer plans podcast. Even Aït-Nouri to Bradley if Trent Alexander-Arnold is ruled out, and they give even more suggestions to give you different ideas in each position. And with the optimization tool, we can quickly make a few modifications. They put Palmer as the vice captain, Salah with the armband, and also changing the bench order and the starting 11. They recommend going for Solanke and Chris Wood this week if I don't make any single transfer, but currently if I do go for Isak and Fernandes, this is how things would look like. At the click of a button, it's all very simple, and you could just really sort out your team in terms of transfers, captaincy, bench order, you name it. The player rankings is my personal favorite feature. I'll be showing you it during the deadline stream. Check out the link in the description below. For as little as £2 per week, you can try it out and see if you like Drafthound, and I think you will. I've been using it for over a year now, and it's been a great resource to really boost the enjoyment of FPL. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. I promise to get this video to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships to support the channel even further, and also gain access to many perks like early access to my videos, also the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It goes a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 12 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.